Joe Friel is often referred to as the father of triathlon coaching. He's the author of some of the best triathlon training books in the world, and also the founder of Training Peaks, the most important software subscription a triathlete can have. He recently came on TriVelo's Get Fast podcast to discuss coaching philosophies with Gerard and Jordan. During the interview, he talked about his go-to tactic to get his training camp athletes insane improvements in their swimming that has nothing to do with training harder.
Because I've told them when they come to the camp, they need to arrive fresh. So you need to have an easy week, the week before the camp, because it's going to be a big week. You're going to be putting in 20 hours, maybe more, which is probably more than you've ever done in your entire life for an age group athlete. So you've got to be fresh when you come in. So the first thing they do when they're fresh, they swim 500-meter time trial. Then for the next typically 4 or 5 days, all we do is 25s with drills. That's all they do. Never swim more than 25, never swim fast. We just swim 25 with drills. At the end of the week, last day, I test them again, 500-meter time trial. Now they're tired. Now they've been through roughly 20 hours of training, which is a gigantic week for most age groupers. And now they're swimming 500 meters again. What I found over the years is roughly 90% of the campers have a faster time than they did on day one when they were fresh. And all we did was work on their technique.
Joe is proving with his own coaching results that doing most of your swim training hard could be a mistake, especially if you don't have your swim technique nailed yet. So how is it possible to swim seconds, even minutes faster without having to train harder? Well, listen to Joe here as he goes on to explain the 4 key technique changes that will be game-changing for your swimming.
All I did was try to make them more efficient. Swimming is about efficiency. It's not about what we typically think in other sports, like running, for example, aerobic capacity and lactate threshold, anaerobic threshold are key determiners of performance. And swimming is 90% efficiency. It's a skill sport, is what it is. It's skill. It's like golf. You don't see golfers going out and doing intervals. All they do is hit balls because they know what they got to do is get really good at hitting balls. It's not how fast they can walk the course. They've just got to be able to hit balls. Yeah. What I look for in the swimmers is I want to see them get to 90 seconds per 100. If we can get to 90 seconds per 100, then you can start doing intervals. Until you get to 90 seconds per 100, we're going to focus on technique. I want you to become very, very efficient. And I try to keep it very simple. There's only 4 things they have to learn. I'm not going to go into all that. There's only 4 things they have to get right in the pool. And each one of them has got at least one of those things they're screwing up. And that's what's keeping them from swimming 90 seconds per 100. Until we can get that thing or things figured out, they're destined to be slow no matter how many intervals they do. They can do intervals from sun up to sundown, and they will not get any faster if they're inefficient. If they're wasting energy, it's totally a waste of time to do intervals.
Do you want to list them for us, the 4 things?
Then you'll probably want me to do details of what they mean, but yes, I'll list them. They're called PDLC. P stands for posture. That's the most basic thing. What I find is the most age groupers, I start with them, have very poor posture in the pool. They've got their head up and their butt down. So they're kind of swimming this way. And so I've got to get them to the point where they can get the right posture, which is on top of the water. So that's the first thing to work on. That is usually pretty easy to teach. The next thing is their direction. A lot of swimmers, most age group swimmers, don't swim in the right direction. They reach across their body with their arms. So they do this sort of thing. They're always crossing over the center line of their body with their arms. Until they quit doing that, they're never going to be fast. It's kind of like running with your legs crossing over from side to side. You just can't be fast. It's just a waste of your time to do intervals. So that's the second thing. That usually can be learned. That takes it's a little more difficult than posture, but I can teach that. There's some drills they can learn to do. In fact, there's some drills we do that I tell them, once you've learned this drill, your direction has been terrible. Once you've learned this drill, what I want you to do is swim this drill all the time. You're always doing this drill. Whenever you swim, I want you swimming this drill. Don't worry about technique. Just swim this drill all the time because it forces you to get your arm out where it's supposed to be. It's in front of your shoulder instead of in front of your face. So that's posture, direction. The third is length. A little more difficult now. Each one becomes more difficult than the previous one. Length has to do with your body's position in the water as you're making your stroke in the freestyle. So typically what happens is with triathletes, they swim like tugboats. They have no length. All they have is width. So they swim with the shoulders never leaving this position. So they don't do, good swimmers swim this way. They swim side to side as they swim. That's what a good swimmer does. A poor swimmer never does that. A poor swimmer just keeps their body like a tugboat in this position all the time and circles their arms around the tugboat. Until they learn to do this, they're never going to be a good swimmer. So we go through some drills that teach them how to do that, what it feels like. Some drills exaggerate the length. That becomes much more difficult. That typically takes like 2 days to get somebody to understand how to do that. And then eventually it has to become a habit. So that's posture, direction, length. And the final thing is catch. Most athletes have no idea what a catch is. They're told by the coach on deck all the time, you need more catch. Reach over the barrel. And they tell them all kinds of things, but it's really simple, but they don't do it because they're never really exactly sure what they're supposed to be doing. So what I might have them do, for example, is if their pool has diving platforms at the end of each lane, I'll have them go to the end of the lane, stand at the end of the lane facing the wall, put your hands up over your head on the platform with your palms on the platform and see if you can pull yourself out of the water. That's a catch. Try to do it now with your hands in this position. Put the wrist on top of the platform and see if you can pull yourself out of the water. It is not going to happen. You can't do it. You got to be in this position. That's the catch. That's what a catch is. That's all there is to it. Mm-hmm. It's not complicated at all. But the complicated part is we've been teaching triathletes for all these years how to swim like pool swimmers swim. They're not pool swimmers. They're open water swimmers. Open water swimmers swim differently than pool swimmers. And one of the things they do differently is their catch. Pool swimmers stick their arm and hand in the water, fingers point at the next wall, and immediately they get a catch. That's what a good swimmer does in the pool. You watch Olympics or open water swimmers, what they do is they reach over the water, usually with a straight arm, and the first thing that enters the water is their fingers, not the palm of their hand, their fingers. Fingers enter the water first. As soon as the fingers enter the water, they start to pull. That's the catch. The idea I try to teach the athlete is the palm of your hand is facing the wall behind you. This is extremely difficult for people to learn because for some cases, years and years and years, been keeping their palm facing the bottom of the pool. That's like having your wrists on the platform at the end of the lane. You cannot get yourself out of the water. You cannot pull yourself from that position. You got to get in this position to pull yourself. So there's lots of drills we do for this, and this goes on for a long time also. The bottom line is when they leave the camp, they've learned what they're supposed to do. Now they've got to take it home and make it habitual. It's got to become the way they always swim. If they go back to doing intervals again, they're right back to where they were before. No posture, no direction, no length, no catch. All they do is create lots of bubbles around themselves and don't go very fast. That's just a waste of time. So I really focus a lot on efficiency. We've got to make you a very efficient swimmer.
It's a great answer, and I think the perfect practice scenario is one that comes to mind. And you use the golf analogy, and if a golfer goes out onto the practice driving range and continues to practice his hook, when he comes to the main day, he's going to hook his tee every day. And if the swimmer's not practicing, the catch, the reach, et cetera, you're going to swim the same way. And that is the difference between riding and running and swimming, in my opinion. It's a skill acquisition. It needs to be a technique-based approach, whereas an aerobic approach to running and riding is, technique is important as a runner, obviously, and as a cyclist, but it's not the same emphasis as a swimmer. You can be as fit as you like in the water with poor technique, and you'll swim the same forever.
That's right. Yeah, swimming is a skill sport. That's what it is. Now, if you've started swimming, you're 5 years old, you learn these skills. No problem at all. If you start swimming, you're 35 years old, big challenge. You've got to learn something that you've never really worked on before, and it's not normal. Water is not a normal habitat to be in. So you got to learn something you never figured out before, and you got somebody on deck that's trying to get you to swim like a pool swimmer, like you're an Olympian, and it's just not going to happen. You've got to learn to make the technique. You've got to learn to do the most basic things to be a good swimmer.
To listen to the rest of this episode, just search Get Fast Podcast in any of your podcast apps, or click the link in the description below to watch the full episode on YouTube.